social services through Cincinnati Public Schools. He has some sensory issues and other things going on. And so being involved in Head Start directly and seeing the impact that the program has had on the kids who truly need every aspect of it, it's been eye-opening. We need to support programs like this. They should be made available, honestly, regardless of income, so that all of our kids can get off on the same foot and that they know what the world looks like as soon as possible, because that's going to make them more empathetic and able to understand other people's problems and as early as possible. We need to support our students throughout their educational journey, affordable or free community college. And we honestly need to be able to provide educational opportunities for our neighbors who are in transition. If they're out of a job, if they need some help and need some retraining, that should be available to them.
One of the things you were just mentioning is that your own children are in Cincinnati Public Schools, and so that's important to you for that. Can you talk a little bit about what it is like to run for Congress as the mother of young children? I think your kids are about the same ages as mine are. Mine are 6 and 3, and
Yes.
I know how very intense it is just to be a working mother of young kids. So can you talk about what that's like to run for Congress while you have young children at home?
Yeah, it's challenging, but it's interesting. So first off, obviously, I could not be doing this without my husband. He has been a rock star in terms of really just stepping up and being supportive of this. And we have a really good nanny. I'm very lucky to have great childcare because this would not be happening otherwise. But it's also, very important for them to see this. Reagan in particular, my daughter, she's 6, she's in kindergarten. And I think, initially was kind of confused by the change in the schedule because my consulting work was part-time. And so she was used to having me around all the time. And obviously now I miss bedtime a good number of nights. But she also understands that we're trying to do something very important and help other people. And so she said the other night, she's like, "Mommy, I don't like the gun thing. And I understand that what you're doing is going to try to help keep more kids safe. And so it's okay if you miss bedtime sometimes." Oh. And she wants to hold a lemonade stand for my Congress, quote unquote. She said that's how it's all going to happen. So it's been a really great experience. She comes with me sometimes to meetings, although she gets pretty bored. But I think it's just it's important for them to see that you can't wait for other people to solve your problems. And sometimes you need to step up and be the one to do it. So yeah, it's definitely challenging, but I think that they're gaining a lot out of this as well. Yeah, it's like any mom I know who's been in a sales job or other travel positions, and their kids all seem to have turned out okay.
Yeah, I definitely agree with this idea of they need to see that you just have to do the work yourself and you can't wait for someone else to save you. I think my older son is also 6, and the morning after the election of Donald Trump, he was just sort of devastated when he found out, because we'd been telling him for so long, we don't like Donald Trump and we think he's a bully. And, then he finds out that this guy that we've been saying is a bully has been elected. And so it's been so important to sort of keep the conversation going with kids so they understand, right. There are differences. You can disagree about how to best do things, but you shouldn't disagree about whether we should help people. And that's sort right. of the mindset that we've been using to approach our kids about all of this. But yeah, I think I'm not sure in another time that I would have been having so many conversations with young children about politics, but it seems impossible to avoid right now.
But isn't that great? Kind of. I mean, I feel like part of the reason we're here as a country is that we were raised to not talk about it. Mm-hmm. And so we never really learned how to address things when we don't agree with people and how to have that conversation without retreating into the yelling. And so I think it's a really great opportunity that we are engaging our kids this early too, and that they understand how important it is. And so, yeah, I mean, it's been interesting to see her, and I'm sure you've had the same thing, to see her kind of start to understand these things that, quite honestly, would make me crawl into a corner and complain that my parents were watching Meet the Press. And she's interested in it. And so I think that's kind of fun.
So you mentioned that your daughter had said something about guns and the gun problem. Obviously, that's a very big issue facing the country right now, and I'm sure it's something in a district that has rural parts of Ohio in it, guns must be a somewhat complicated issue. What are the kind of things that you would like to see Congress do to address the gun violence problem?
Yeah, we obviously have a lot of gun owners in our district, and I'm a member of Moms Demand Action, and I support their platform because I think it really reflects a common sense approach, which is nobody wants to ban guns. We support them for hunting, for self-protection, recreation that way. It's really, we need background checks. We need to limit high-capacity magazines. We need to close the gun show loophole. We need to talk about banning these assault weapons, and we need to ensure, just again, common sense legislation. And I think what's interesting is it's really a bipartisan issue. We have talked with a ton of Democratic gun owners who really love their guns. And yet even these folks who are dedicated gun owners are saying, I love my guns. I love my children more. Something needs to be done. And so even if we're not 100% on the same page as to what that something is, the conversation is happening. And once you start having the conversation, then change is going to come. And that's what's, I think, most positive about this, is that we should be able to get something done. Yeah. And these kids from Parkland are going to keep it front and center, and I just can't get over how inspiring they are. They are just out there doing the work that adults have been unable to do for decades now. You know what? I want to wrap around really fast to the raising kids thing. I actually had somebody on a Facebook post directly question how my young ones will fare if their mother wins and has to be gone, and how they'll live without a parent. So after my husband checked to make sure that he wasn't actually dead and still existed in their world, we realized, like, my opponent has a 4-year-old or 5-year-old son. Nobody asks him what happens to his kid when he's in DC. Yeah. And so I think that's an interesting, in this era of Me Too and increased awareness of what's going on with our gender roles and expectations, to really see it so blatantly. And it happens all the time from women and from men on the trail about the fact that I have young children. I think it's really, I'm glad we can have this conversation, and I'm glad that I can be there to have my daughter and my son see that conversation as well.
Yeah, I think my response to a question like that would be, how are my kids going to fare if I'm not the one elected?
Right, exactly. And how are your kids going to fare if I'm not? Yeah. Interesting to see that alive and well still.
Yes, not at all surprising though.
Yeah, sadly not.
I had a similar experience at some point. I don't remember. It must have been when I was pregnant with my first child, and someone saying, well, you're going to quit your job now, right? To stay home and raise your kids, and this is a fleeting time, and your kids need you. And I said, well, I'm pretty sure my kids need a roof over their heads and food more. So no, I'm going to keep working. I mean, they need a happy, fulfilled mother.
It's important on so many levels, right? Like, I mean, most people need 2 incomes to survive. And so it's just so privileged to assume that everybody can just do that. And quite honestly, a lot of people don't want to do it because it's not the 100% of who you are. Being a parent is the best thing I've done, but it's not 100% fulfilling. There are other aspects of all of us as people that need to be nurtured and developed alongside of that. If you accomplish that by staying home, that's great too. We do ourselves such a disservice by fighting among the moms all the time, Everybody should raise their kids to be happy and healthy, and they should be happy and healthy, and we'd all get along much better if we came at it that way, I think.
I agree. Congress should be all moms, and we'd figure it out.
I think that, it's funny you say that, but it's true. I like to say that I would feel more confident working with a very conservative woman than a man sometimes, because, we have to figure it out on the soccer field and at the PTA, and so we can figure it out on the floor of the house. Get the moms together. We will find something to work on and get this system moving again, even if we don't agree on a lot of things.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you want to make sure that people know about you or about Ohio?
Well, I think that what people need to know is that people say that the system's broken. And I don't think that it is. I think it's doing what it's supposed to do when we are this divided. It shuts down so that we don't hurt ourselves. And it's time to get those wheels turning again, to get government working again. And I intend to do that, and intend to do it for the people of the 2nd District, because they deserve it. They deserve a government that works for them and a representative who's accountable to them, and they haven't had it. So hopefully we can pull this off and get them the services that they deserve.
Excellent. And we will put up on our website links to your website and your Facebook and Twitter so that our listeners can go learn more about you.
great. I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
And if my listeners in the 2nd District, which should include at least my brother.
Please vote on May 8th for Jill Schiller.
All right. Excellent. Thank you.
That's horrible.
That's true.
So strange.
Usually.
I can't imagine what that's like.
Do you want to?
That could never happen to me.
It might.
Lock him away. He's pure evil. Or insane.
Or human. My name's Kate. I have worked as a forensic psychologist, as well as in prisons and as a crisis clinician. My job was to figure out who gets locked up and who gets a key. To find the humanity in inhumane situations. So, are you sure you really want to know?
Yeah? Maybe.
Because by the end of the episodes, you just might end up thinking...
I felt better before I knew that.
You can find me at IWB Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, sometimes Instagram, or you can email me at iwbpodcast@gmail.com.
Hi, everyone. I'm back in this segment with Tina Maharath, who is running for the Ohio State Senate in the 3rd District. Hello, Tina.
Hi.
Thanks so much for joining me. Can we start by having you talk just a little bit about your background and how you got to here where you're running for the state Senate?
Yes, absolutely. So my parents are actually refugees from Laos during the Vietnam War era. They came here with nothing but their clothes on their back and each other. They crossed many rivers and ran through many fields to make sure they had a great life for our future. And I am the first U.S.-born citizen of our family. So I grew up watching a lot of socioeconomic disparities between my family and a lot of language barriers that prevented them from having this great life in America that they came to. But they were still grateful about their life because they had the life of freedom. So with my family back in Laos, they got taken over from communists, and they were killing anyone and everyone who had to do with the previous reign. So my dad's family was unfortunately on that list, so we had no choice but to leave. But that being said, they came to America for a better life, but, this better life ended up being a life of poverty for myself. What happened was eventually I got shipped away to France because the education systems here in America weren't up to par to what my parents thought were up to par from my IQ standards. My mom and brothers eventually died in a car accident when I was about 14 years old, still living in France. So I had to move back to America, and I just watched my dad struggle all these years. And I was never allowed to talk about politics. That's a subject that was kind of unspoken because of the trauma of having to flee a country because they had to do with the previous government. So one day I just stood up to my dad. I said, Dad, I want to get into politics because I want to defend the little people like ourselves who don't get the voice in politics. And my dad said, hey, go ahead, but let's see if you can put up the fight. So I got into politics for school. Eventually, I landed an internship with the U.S. Senate. I just kept learning more about constituent services, but also thought there was a lot of underrepresentation for women and minorities. So I decided to go ahead and get some training, get some networking, and I decided to go ahead and run for office this year because there was an open seat available.
Can you tell us a little bit about the 3rd Senate District, where exactly it is, what the communities are that it covers?
Yes, so the 3rd State Senate District is primarily the eastern part of Franklin County, which is primarily like the eastern suburbs of Columbus. So it is 75% Caucasian, 20% African American, and then the rest of the 5% is the other minorities, which includes Hispanics, Asians, etc. So it is a primarily working families type of environment, but it's also a women empowerment environment as well. With that political climate change, a lot of entrepreneurship has stepped up, and it's primarily a lot of women, but also women have also primarily much more of the entrepreneurships in that district, such as Smith's Farm that's owned now as a woman. And then, of course, a lot of salons, a lot of grocery stores, or just small convenience stores that are just owned by either women, minorities, or just someone who is a refugee or immigrant.
And what are the kinds of issues that the people in the 3rd District are really concerned with?
So the feedback I have been provided so far with most of the issue concerns has to do with education and the drug epidemic. So with the education, there are a lot of charter schools in the district, and there's no proven fact to prove that